So, Roger, what do you think about our present government?
Well, that question can be answered at many levels. First of all, I think that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, under the present PP administration, has done something new. Not necessarily better, but new in Trinidad and Tobago. In that they have increased the size of the executive, so now we have a situation where you have the most amount of parliamentarians, the most amount of government officials to be paid, and the most amount of ministries. It doesn't necessarily translate into better governance, because we have seen over the period of time a number of false steps being made, wrong appointments, claims of favoritism, nepotism and so on, corruption, and an attempt to try to muzzle the media, which is of course, one of the guardians of our democracy. So that I think that the government, in many cases, are taking a lot more people to do a lot less than what the previous administration had done. However, in some areas they have redeemed themselves, because I think Mr. Glenn Ramadas Singh, Minister of Social Welfare and so on, is doing quite a good job, and some of the others are really trying. But the government is yet to prove or to live up to its most vaunted claims of some major significant improvement in the country as opposed to the former PNM administration. However, we see already though, they, in some cases, they are spending less in terms of some of the projects that the PNM would have spent more money on. So in balance, I think that the government it is a young government, it is growing, it is learning, but at the same time, there are some unacceptable levels of corruption and wrongdoing which really should not be, since they were the ones also vehement and so outspoken against the former PNM.
Are you therefore disappointed in the government's inability to keep its promises to the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
Okay, that's a very good question. Disappointment, yes, because the claims that they made, they came in on the moral high ground of being able to improve upon the what the PNM did. They came in on the moral high ground of new politics, as we knew that Mr. Lucran spoke of a new politics and the whole new approach, morality in politics and so on. And this new politics manifested himself in even, people who with some measure of integrity, like Mr. Abdullah and so on, and others within the party who actually spoke out and said, well, there seems to be real problems here where there is, corruption, favoritism and so on going on. And in addition to that, we saw cases where people were being appointed in positions which they didn't deserve. The Reshmi issue was one of those. And then we saw Clause 34 happening, and then we saw other issues, especially with regard to the integrity of Mr. Jack Warner. And then we're seeing many things happening daily. For example, this is the first time we have an Attorney General who seemed to just be multiplying properties. So one wonders if his business is really businessman or Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. Then we saw Mr. Hubert Volney take the fall for the Clause 34 issue, which really was a matter of collective responsibility, and I think that the matter has been dealt with. So yes, I'm a bit disappointed, because we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago who voted this party, to give them the mandate of 29 seats, really wanted better politics. They wanted something different, they wanted something better, they wanted something apart from what we call the racially divided and partisan politics of the former parties, such as the former UNC and the former PNM.
Do you see this government being re-elected for another term in office?
Well, we have to look at the alternatives. While of course their record is an ideal one, Mrs. Kamala Prasad is a very clever politician, and she has always tried, after everything, at least to patch up or to try to smooth off things that were done. We see very recently with the wage negotiation issues, there was sitting on the 5% wage cap and they were giving people a lot of trouble. And then recently she adjusted it and was able to give the police something, was able to give other bodies, and of course even teachers now were able to get something. So that what is happening is that while it's not an ideal government, while of course there is a room for a lot of improvement, if nothing drastic happens within the next election, we can see them winning again because they have 29 seats. They will lose some of those seats. So it might be, instead of 29, 12, it might be more like 21, 18 or 17, something like that. The PNM will definitely get closer. The PNM can win if Mr. Rowley gets his act together and they revamp the whole approach to the seniors in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a big part of the electorate, and which they will have to try to win back because Mr. Rowley doesn't seem to have the type of appeal that Mr. the former Prime Minister, Mr. Manning, has with regard to meeting all the groups. But if something drastic happens, yes, they can lose. But at the rate at which they are going to win, but by a smaller margin this time. That is how I see it.
Do you think there's a general feeling of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Do you think that they are losing faith in the politicians in general?
That's a very good question because what has become the order of the day is that politics, people seem to say politics is a dirty game. So we expect it to be dirty. Then we also say that you must have corruption, you must have graft, you must have kickbacks. Then we also say that politicians are liars, so you don't have to trust what they say. Then we also say that, anytime you go into politics, you gotta be willing, to drop your moral standard and so on. And a lot of the people in Trinidad and Tobago are religious people. A lot of them profess to have a particular faith or faiths. And for some reason, the best people do not get into politics. When I say the best, you might get the cleverest and the trickiest and the most callous and conscience-less ones. And maybe one or two people with a conscience, but they might be independent senators or people who really thinking about the country. And maybe, yes, indeed, within the political party, might have a few who really get in there to do something better. But the majority of persons who find themselves there, we see it as a matter of ensuring that, you leave with full pockets. And it's an economic thing. And people get disenchanted because we cannot expect a great level of integrity, we cannot expect a great level of truth, we cannot expect a great level of transparency, nor accountability. So all of these things are things which make any organization run well, and it seems that the politics in Trinidad and Tobago shows very scant regard and very little what we call attention to these very critical areas.
If you were given the opportunity to make a political contribution to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, what portfolio would you choose? What will be your contributions and why?
Okay, very good. Very well. Well, being an educator for many years, I would naturally choose the area of education, the Ministry of Education. My contribution will be in ensuring that, in addition to the technical and intellectual aspects, that is a strong moral focus and a moral input. For the past 2 years, I've been studying morals and values education, and I believe that in any society where you have a number of persons coming together from different races, from different cultures, from different religious positions, from different philosophical orientations, you need to have some level of value consensus. We need to come together, we need to define what are the things that we call good, what are the things we call right, and we must be willing to defend this regardless of race, color, creed, or family orientation, or whatever it is. We must be able to say, this is what the ideal citizen of Trinidad and Tobago is supposed to be. This is what we need to do to get them to be that type of person. These are the values we should learn, and these are the values we must practice in the home, in the marketplace, in the church, school, mosque, mandir, or temple, and of course in interaction one the other. Too much we have seen that people will say, okay, morality is for in church, or for the mosque, or for the man. But when they come out here now, they're rubbing you on the scale, they're bad driving you, they're cussing you, they're robbing, they're murdering, they're doing all kinds of evil things. And even in regard to the people who you think we should do better, look at the amount of the level of white collar crime in our country. Men like what happened with Lawrence Dupree and Clico, what happened with Harry Harnaran and the Hindu Credit Union, what happened in so many other instances where people have stolen large amounts of money and by extension have displaced and dispossessed citizens of the countries who could have benefited from the public wealth. And we see that they it's a whole total lack of morals and values. Then we have cases where lawyers now would come and defend these people, and it's all about money. So the whole thing is, whenever the value becomes money, and I love to quote this, saying from the scripture which says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." In that, when someone loves money and monetary gain, they are willing to make all kinds of moral compromises, and even in fact actively do wickedness and evil against others in order to gain that monetary. And the other part of your question is why I want to think in terms of I will answer by asking another question. What is the alternative? It is either we decide what is good and right, or we allow these destructive tendencies to feed up on themselves until it will lead to war, destruction, strife, violence, and bloodshed. That's all it leads to. But when you feed up on moral and spiritual values, you find what is best in us. We can synergize, we can work together to build. And when we have built and we have gathered the collectible, then we can share it equitably and everybody can benefit from it. So certainly I would love to be in education, so that not only will we be able to know how to make a living, but we'll also know how to live.
And one final question. Given your answer to the previous question, how could you apply that knowledge in a more practical approach, given the fact that our young people today are in a constant battle where the moral and spiritual values is challenged? They come out here on the streets, they are faced with the vulgar music, or entice even drug pushers, easy money, increase in violence in school, violence in the street, violence in the home, where they see the politicians and other adults who are supposed to be moral leaders who are not practicing spiritual values, even in our churches, every aspect of society. What can you do now to keep these young people grounded, given the increase in violence every day in schools across Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, that's a question which not only speaks of my responsibility, but the responsibility of the young person themselves to imbibe and internalize, to learn cognitively and then to internalize emotionally and otherwise these values, and then of course to externalize them in terms of the practice in their daily life. So I would say that what I can do is expose them to it, put programs and policies in place which would make it easy for them to be exposed to trained teachers so that they will be able to properly impart these values, have a connection with the home as well. So it's a home plus a school effort, and then of course we can connect with the religious organization and the non-governmental organizations, where we can all work together in a partnership to ensure that these values are infused and suffused throughout the system. Then we will have some measure of evaluation where the young people will be put into situations where they'll be tested to see how well they adapt. And not only young persons, but the adults as well, because values are a thing that we're always learning, we're always growing, and we are always getting better and better. Another thing is that we'll have to reduce the exposure to things like drugs, to things like pornography, to things like the wrong type of music, the wrong type of company, the wrong type. We'll have to reduce the exposure to those things. So there should be stiffer laws and penalties for these destructive things in our society. But we have to create avenues where they can have recreation, where they can have gainful employment, where they can have social activities and so on. And in that combination of, home, school, church, society, it should provide conditions that will predispose the individual to virtuous rather than non-virtuous behaviors.
Thank you so much, Raja.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye.